Amidst a sky full of blazing fire, Elysia was kissing my lifeless corpse, volunteering to be barbecued together in the sea of flames. And there was my soul, floating in midair, staring at this cinematic disaster with absolutely zero power to stop it. In that moment, I finally realized how much I owed Elysia for her profound devotion. Thinking back on everything in the past, I shed tears of pure, unadulterated regret. Elysia and I got shackled together through an arranged marriage. Post-wedding, she was basically my personal genie, obedient to my every whim, and deeply, madly in love with me. If I wanted the stars, she would absolutely figure out a way to snatch the moon for me as a bonus. I casually mentioned liking a certain multi-million-dollar sports car, and boom, the very next day, it would be parked right in front of me. Even when I fell sick, she would stay up all night, guarding my bedside like a loyal sentinel. But me? I was a certified idiot who loathed her, purposely hitting the clubs to find female models just to make her look bad. I even went as far as listening to the toxic whispers of my childhood friend Valerian and eloped with him. But plot twist of the century. I never expected that Valerian didn't love me even a fraction of a percent. The only reason he exhausted every trick in the book to win my heart was because the Valerian family and the Elysia family had a generational blood feud. He hired goons to kidnap me, using my fragile life to blackmail Elysia. Elysia, mail me one of your fingers every day, or I'll send Caspian straight to the afterlife. Elysia didn't say a single word. She simply chopped off a finger every day and mailed it to him like it was an Amazon return. On day 10, when the final bloody finger, still wearing our wedding ring, was delivered, my sanity officially left the chat. I couldn't bear to watch Elysia play this gruesome, foolish game anymore, so I rage quit life by directly biting my own tongue to end it all. After I kicked the bucket, my soul floated in the air, watching the usually icy, self-possessed Elysia completely lose her marbles upon seeing my corpse. She rushed over to avenge me, ordering her bodyguards to snap every single bone in Valerian's body like stale breadsticks. Listening to his agonizing screams, her eyes were nothing but pools of dead, scary silence. Finally, she chucked her billion-dollar empire into the trash, abandoned the entire Elysia Corporation, took my body, and threw us a fiery farewell party. Amidst the roaring flames, she kissed my lips with a devout, profound love, whispering, "Caspian, if there is a next life, could you please love me just once?" The moment the fire swallowed her whole, my ghost floated there, crying so hard my non-existent lungs felt like they were ripping apart. In that moment, I finally witnessed the absolute depth of her love. When I opened my eyes again, I realized I had hit the universal reset button and respawned. I was reborn into the first year of my marriage with Elysia. I was ecstatic, shedding hot tears of joy. This time, I swore on my life I would definitely, properly love Elysia. So, I deleted every single piece of Valerian's contact info. I made Elysia breakfast every single morning, waited up for her to get off work until the dead of night, and my eyes were filled with nothing but her. But oops, plot twist number 2. She changed. She was no longer gentle with me, no longer came home every day, and not only treated me with cold detachment, but even went out and got herself a sugar baby, a male college student. And just recently, her little side piece desperately needed a liver transplant. Elysia's brilliant solution was to order her men to forcefully strap my mother to the operating table. On the day of the surgery, I was on my knees on the floor, banging my forehead until it bled, but she just had someone lock me in a confinement room. 3 days later, the surgery was a success. Elysia stood straight in front of me, her eyes as cold as if she were looking at a complete stranger. The surgery was very successful. I've sent people to take care of your mother. I need to stay at the hospital to take care of Asher these next few days, so I won't be coming home. I stared at this woman who once literally walked through fire for me, and finally couldn't hold back before she turned away. I croaked out with a raspy voice, "Elysia, you clearly loved me so much. Why the sudden switch up?" She paused her steps, didn't even bother to look back, and dropped the mic. "We are just a business transaction couple. When did I ever love you?" The moment the door clicked shut, I slid down onto the freezing floor, crying a river. Never loved me. How could she have never loved me? She clearly loved me so much in our past life. Yet now, to save her lover's life, she didn't hesitate to forcefully drag my mother onto the operating table. Well, since she doesn't love me in this life, then I will let go and completely grant her wish. I stumbled up and dragged my exhausted body to the hospital. When I pushed the door open, my mom was still fast asleep. Her face was horrifyingly pale, and under the oxygen mask, her breathing was weak but steady. I stood by the bed, looking at her frail body wrapped in the hospital gown, feeling like my throat was blocked by cement. Caspian. I whipped my head around and saw my dad standing at the door, looking like he'd just survived a tornado. His suit jacket was wrinkled, his tie was crooked. He had obviously rushed back from overseas on an emergency flight. "Dad," my voice choked up. My knees went weak, and I directly dropped to the floor again. My knees were getting a real workout in this life. "I'm sorry. This is all because of me." My dad rushed over in 3 massive strides and yanked me up. "Nonsense! The floor is freezing. What are you kneeling for?" His hands were rough, warm, but trembling slightly. "It's not your fault. How could anyone blame you?" I kept my head down, my tears smashing onto the floor tiles. My dad sighed and gently patted my back. Back then, it was clearly Elysia who took the initiative to propose the marriage alliance, claiming she had a crush on you for years. His voice was full of utter confusion. How did it suddenly turn into this? Yeah, exactly. Everyone knew she loved me. But in this life, why did she suddenly do a 180? Dad, I took a deep breath. I've thought it through. I want to divorce Elysia. It just so happens that our family's business is slowly shifting overseas anyway. Since things have come to this, let's just pack up and move the whole family away from here. My dad fell silent. His gaze shifted back and forth between me and my mom on the sickbed. After a long time, he finally spoke. Do you truly not love her anymore? My fingernails dug so deeply into my palms that blood seeped through my fingers, but I didn't even feel it. My voice was as light as a fallen leaf, trembling and shattering in the air. She treated Mom like this. How am I supposed to keep loving her? My father stayed silent for another moment, then let out a heavy sigh as if he had made a final decision. In that case, we leave. He patted my shoulder. Go handle the paperwork. Leave this place to me. With red eyes, I nodded, turned around and walked out of the hospital room. The immigration paperwork went surprisingly smoothly. Stepping out the main doors, the sunlight stabbed my eyes until they ached. I stood by the side of the road, feeling a sudden wave of unreality. It's finally going to be over. Right at that moment, a piercing screech of brakes ripped through the air. Watch out! Before I even had time to turn my head, a massive force sent me flying like a rag doll. I woke up to a symphony of sharp pain. Opening my eyes, Elysia's gorgeous, icy face was mere inches away. She looked down at me from her high horse, her disgust not hidden in the slightest. Caspian, did you do this on purpose? Seeing Asher get hurt in a car crash, so you decided to copy him? She let out a cold sneer, her voice sounding like it was dipped in liquid nitrogen. Let me tell you, we are just a marriage of convenience. There are no feelings. No matter how much you try to mimic him, it's useless. I don't have time to babysit you. I opened my mouth, just about to explain myself, when the hospital room door was suddenly pushed open. Boss Elysia, the porridge you asked for. The assistant respectfully handed over a takeout container. Elysia casually took it, popped the lid, took one look, and her eyebrows instantly tied into a knot. Why is this seafood porridge? He is allergic to seafood. Go buy another one. That sentence struck the top of my skull like a literal thunderbolt. Seafood allergy? In our past life, during the second year of our marriage, I accidentally ate seafood and nearly went into anaphylactic shock. She only found out about it then. But right now, we hadn't even been married for a full year. Thinking about all her bizarre behavior recently, the sudden distancing, the inexplicable favoritism toward Asher, and that line, "When did I ever love you?" A ridiculously wild thought shot into my brain. My entire body started shaking. Elysia, are you reborn too? Elysia frowned. What, rebirth? I stared dead into her eyes. Then how do you know I'm allergic to seafood? Your parents came to see me a while ago, she replied. Her expression perfectly normal, not even an eyelash twitching. They asked me to treat you better, and even gave me a notebook listing your likes and dietary restrictions. I just happened to flip through it before coming here. Her excuse was completely airtight. It made my heart sting. Was I just overthinking things? A nurse suddenly pushed the door open. Boss Elysia, Mr. Asher is awake. He's looking for you. Hearing that, Elysia walked out without looking back, not leaving me a single glance. During my 3 days in the hospital, Elysia didn't visit me once. Every time the nurse came to change my dressings, her hesitant looks felt like a silent mockery of my pathetic existence. On the morning of the 4th day, I processed my own discharge. The immigration paperwork was done. Now I was ready to leave. The only thing left was the final step, divorce. I sat at the desk, writing out the divorce agreement, stroke by stroke. The pen tip scratched against the paper, feeling like my heart was being ripped apart raw. The terms of the agreement were incredibly simple. I wanted absolutely nothing. Just my sweet freedom. My phone buzzed. An update from Asher's social media. In the photo, Elysia was sitting at her office desk, and Asher was standing behind her chair, wrapping his arms around her shoulders. The caption read, "Someone said non-staff are never allowed in the office. Today, an exception was made for me." My finger hovered over the screen, unable to tap it for a long time. In our past life, Elysia had broken countless rules for me just like this. She, who never ate spicy food, accompanied me to eat Sichuan cuisine until it was so bad she had to get her stomach pumped. She, a severe germaphobe, carried my drunken, messy self home. She, who loathed public appearances, attended magazine interviews just for my sake. I took a deep breath, forcefully evicted those memories from my brain, grabbed the divorce agreement, and headed out. The Elysia Corporation building was as imposing as ever. Riding the elevator up, I was still brainstorming how to casually drop the D word. Walking past the CEO's office, Elysia's assistant happened to be walking by with some files. "Sir." The assistant clearly blanked for a second. "Are you here to see Boss Elysia?" I tightened my grip on the document folder. "Just need her to sign something." The assistant's eyes lingered on my pale face for a moment. "I'm heading in right now, I can take it in for you." I hesitated for a second, then handed him the divorce agreement. "Sorry to trouble you." The assistant took the document, slipped it into a stack of other files, and gently knocked on the door. The moment the door opened, my blood practically froze. Elysia was standing in front of the sofa, gently massaging the shoulders of Asher, who was sitting there with a sickeningly sweet smile on his face. "Boss Elysia, these documents need your signature." The assistant's voice made Elysia look up. She was so busy playing masseuse for Asher that she just signed the files without even glancing at them. I stood outside the door, my fists clenched so tight my knuckles turned white. The assistant came out and handed the divorce agreement back to me. "Sir, it's signed." I looked at her signature on the paper, my eyes turning slightly red. I gave a small said my thanks, turned around and walked away. While waiting for the elevator, I called my lawyer. We both signed it. How long until we get the official divorce certificate? Sir, we just need to pass the 1-month cooling-off period. I nodded. Just as I hung up, Asher's voice chimed from behind. Caspian, why are you here? I turned around just in time to see Alicia letting go of Asher's hand, striding over with a face like a thundercloud. Who told you to come to the company? She grabbed my wrist. I told you we are just a marriage of convenience. I don't interfere with you, and you stay out of my business. I shook off her hand. Got it. There won't be a next time. The vibe was getting tense. Asher hurried over and wrapped his arm around Alicia's shoulder. Alicia, don't be like this. He is your husband after all. Then he looked at me. Perfect timing. Alicia and I are heading to an auction. Come with us. Your mom saved me last time and I haven't even thanked her yet. No need. My mom doesn't need your. I cut her off. Asher's eyes immediately welled up with fake tears. But if you don't go, I'll feel so guilty. Caspian, Alicia commanded coldly. When you're told to go, you go. Don't be ungrateful. I felt utterly exhausted. Eventually, I went to the auction. I sat in the venue, surrounded by the sounds of bidding wars. Alicia raised her paddle, elegant and unbothered. Every time she upped the price, the crowd gasped. 5 million. Boss Alicia bids 5 million. This sapphire goes to Boss Alicia, the auctioneer hollered. Asher sat next to Alicia, smiling. Alicia, this gem is so beautiful. Alicia gently brushed a stray hair from his forehead. Boss Alicia is so good to her little toy. Spoiling him absolutely rotten, someone muttered from the back row. That's nothing. Last month, Mr. Asher said he liked a mega penthouse in Thompson Riviera. Tens of millions! Boss Alicia transferred the deed to him the very next day. Another voice gossiped. I gripped my number paddle, my knuckles completely white. Caspian, Asher leaned over. Which piece do you like? I'll have Alicia buy it for you. I shook my head coldly. No thanks. Then let's look at the next one. Maybe there's something you'll like, Asher insisted, relentless as a mosquito. The auctioneer banged his gavel. The next item is quite special. Please direct your attention to the screen. Esteemed guests. The massive screen lit up. The entire hall erupted in an uproar. The photos displayed showed Asher's face being stomped into the wet floor of a bathroom, beaten black and blue, and being forced to drink toilet water. Oh my god, this little toy is filthy. Does Boss Alicia even know? Whispers exploded everywhere. Asher's face lost all color. He stood up, screaming hysterically. Turn it off! Turn it off right now! That's not me. He looked at me, tears bursting from his eyes. Caspian, do you really hate me that much? With that, he bolted out of the room. Alicia's face looked murderous. I am buying all of these photos. Take them down in 3 seconds. 1 second slower, and I will bankrupt this auction house. If anyone dares to leak a single word about what happened today, face the consequences. Finally, she looked at me, her voice absolute ice. You just wait. My brain completely blanked. I returned to the villa shivering from head to toe. I had no idea how those photos ended up at the auction. I would never stoop so low as to humiliate Asher like that, but Alicia would never believe me. I sat on the sofa for the entire night. When dawn broke, the front door was kicked open. Alicia stormed in, radiating sheer homicidal rage, her eyes bloodshot. Caspian! She grabbed me by the throat, squeezing so hard I couldn't breathe. Do you have any idea? Asher jumped into the sea. If I hadn't gotten there in time, he'd be a corpse right now. It wasn't me. I didn't leak those photos. I managed to choke out. Not you? She sneered, letting go of her grip. So what, did he leak them himself? I was completely speechless. Before I could say another word, Alicia coldly stated, We are just a marriage of convenience, but you have repeatedly hurt the person I love most. You must pay the price. Those words stabbed my heart like daggers. In our past life, she used to protect me exactly like this. Back then, she said, whoever dares to touch Caspian, I'll bury their entire family with them. But now, the person she was protecting was someone else. Caspian, you are going to go to the hospital right now, this very second, and apologize to Asher. My eyes reddened, but I glared at her stubbornly. I didn't do anything wrong. I honestly don't know what I'm supposed to be apologizing for. Alicia scoffed, snapping her fingers. 2 bodyguards instantly marched in and pinned me down. Take him to the electroshock room. Alicia walked out without looking back. He stays there until he knows he's wrong. Inside the electroshock room, I stared at her in total disbelief. Just to make me apologize to Asher, she was actually subjecting me to electroshock torture. Before I could even process the absurdity of it, I was dragged into the damp, freezing basement and forced onto the shock bed. The bodyguards efficiently strapped my wrists and ankles down. The freezing leather belts bit into my flesh. The second the guard flipped the switch, electricity surged through my entire body. I convulsed like a fish thrown on dry land, only to be yanked back down by the heavy straps. My teeth bit completely through my lip, the taste of rust and blood filling my mouth. Are you going to apologize? The guard hit the button to crank up the voltage. It felt like 10,000 steel needles cruising through my veins, piercing from my fingertips straight into my heart. I heard a sound tear out of my throat, a whimpering noise that didn't even sound human. My teeth mangled my lower lip into a bloody mess. I shook my head, my hair plastered to my face with cold sweat. I did nothing wrong. Why should I apologize? The current hit me again, stronger this time. My vision started blurring, my muscles spasming uncontrollably. 3rd time, 4th time, 5th time, 10th time. Stop! Stop! I finally broke down, sobbing hysterically. Tears and blood ran down my face. I'm wrong. I'll apologize. I'll go apologize. I was forcibly dragged to the hospital. The VIP has finally figured it out and come to confess. Elysia sat by the hospital bed, glaring at me like I was scum. My legs were trembling uncontrollably. The muscle spasms post-electroshock made every single step feel like walking barefoot on razor blades. I leaned against the wall to keep from collapsing, my vision blacking out in waves. I'm sorry. My voice was so raspy it barely sounded like words. I shouldn't have released the photos of you being bullied. Asher leaned against the headboard, looking pale and fragile. Caspian, if this was any other day, I'd let it slide. But this time you really crossed the line. So I do not accept this kind of apology. Elysia immediately leaned in and pulled him into her arms, her voice sickeningly gentle. Then what do you want to do? He should at least get on his knees to show his sincerity, right? I jerked my head up, only to immediately meet Elysia's freezing glare. Still not kneeling? Or do you want another round in the electroshock room? My body violently flinched. My knees slammed heavily onto the hard floor. I'm sorry. Only then did Asher let out a reluctant, dramatic huff. Fine, I forgive you. Stepping out of the room, my vision went completely black and I nearly face-planted onto the floor. I leaned against the wall, catching my breath for a long time before dragging my broken body away. That night, Elysia actually brought Asher back to our marital home. Asher's mental state isn't great. He'll be staying here for a while. Her tone was flat, like she was discussing the weather forecast. I didn't even have the energy to argue anymore. Whatever, we were already in the middle of divorce proceedings anyway. Pretty soon, this wouldn't be my house anymore. Elysia frowned, seemingly noticing something off about my vibe. Just as she opened her mouth to speak, Asher tugged on her sleeve. Elysia, I'm hungry. What do you want to eat? I'll have the chef make it. It's so late, let's not bother them. Asher smiled shyly, but his eyes locked dead onto me. Isn't Caspian right here? Make him cook it. Elysia looked at me. Didn't you hear him? How delightfully ironic. Me, the actual legal husband, reduced to acting as a personal chef for my wife's side piece. I forced a twitch of a smile and mechanically walked into the kitchen. Scalding chili oil bubbled and roared in the pot. I stared numbly at the rolling bubbles. Is the hot pot ready yet? Asher's voice suddenly chirped from behind me. Almost. I didn't turn around. Asher leaned in to peek and suddenly frowned. Caspian, why is there so little stuff in here? The seasoning isn't right either. Before he even finished his sentence, he suddenly grabbed my wrist and slammed my hand straight into the boiling hot pot. Ah! Agonizing pain instantly exploded from my palm to my entire body. I instinctively thrashed around. Scalding red oil splashed everywhere. By the time I finally yanked my hand out, the back of it was completely red, swollen, and covered in massive blisters. But Asher took the opportunity to splash a few drops of the boiling broth onto his own arm, then performed an Oscar-worthy, exaggerated fall to the floor. What happened? Elysia came sprinting at the noise. Asher's eyes immediately turned red. Elysia, I shouldn't have asked Caspian to make hot pot for me. Now I made him mad, and he purposely splashed boiling soup on my hand. Elysia's face morphed into absolute fury. She lunged forward and grabbed my wrist. Are you ever going to stop? Did you not hear a single word I told you last time? I was pale as a ghost from the pain. Trembling, I held up my red, blistered, severely burned hand. My voice cracked. Elysia, open your eyes and look at who is actually hurt worse. Elysia froze. I didn't do that. Asher frantically defended himself. Elysia, he splashed me first, and then, because he was scared you'd be mad, he purposely burned himself. My eyes were bloodshot as I gritted out word by word. There are security cameras in here. Just check the footage and we'll see. Asher's face dropped. Before he could say anything, Elysia sharply cut me off. No need to check. I believe Asher would never do something like this. Hearing that, Asher visibly exhaled in relief, shooting me a triumphant, provocative glare. My heart felt like it was being ripped cleanly in half. Half was the searing agony burning my hand. The other half was an even more violent pain tearing apart my chest cavity. You are incorrigible, Elysia said icily. Since you love burning people with soup so much, I'll let you burn to your heart's content. She snapped her fingers. 2 bodyguards barged in immediately and pinned down my other perfectly fine hand. No, I thrashed in absolute terror. You will regret this. Before the words fully left my mouth, the bodyguards mercilessly plunged my good hand straight into the boiling hot pot. A scream of pure, lung-shredding agony instantly echoed through the entire villa. When I woke up from the pain, I found myself lying in my bedroom. Both my hands were wrapped up like thick mummy paws in gauze. Searing, spicy waves of pain kept hitting me over and over. Sir, you're awake! Nanny Wang sat by the bed with red, puffy eyes. Your hands. I'm calling Boss Elysia to come back right now. Don't. I shook my head weakly. She's the one who ordered this. Nanny Wang gasped loudly. How is that possible? Boss Elysia used to secretly follow you to and from school every day, terrified you'd get even a tiny scratch. Tears slid silently from the corners of my eyes. Look at that. Everyone said she loved me. So why the sudden lack of love? I didn't understand. I truly didn't get it. During my recovery days, I got a front row seat to their daily PDA via Asher's social media. Elysia flew him to Paris for fashion shows, rented out an entire amusement park just for him, and even set off a private fireworks display on his birthday. A week later, Elysia finally brought Asher back. And the very first thing she said to me was, Caspian, Asher's birthday is coming up. You will organize the banquet. Consider it payment for burning him. I was so exhausted I didn't even have the energy to argue anymore. I just wanted no more drama before I left for good, so I numbly nodded and agreed. Fine. During the week I spent organizing the banquet, I barely slept a wink. Dragging my unhealed hands, I personally picked out every single floral arrangement and confirmed every dish. The staff looked at me with eyes full of pity, but no one dared to help. On the day of the banquet, the entire Elysia estate was brilliantly lit. Guests whispered amongst themselves. The official husband throwing a birthday bash for his wife's little toy boy? Absolutely unheard of. Boss Elysia is really putting her true feelings into this one. Just look at those gifts. Any random one is worth a fortune. I stood in the corner, tuning out the gossip. My eyes locked onto Elysia in the center of the room. She was wearing a stunning black mermaid gown, constantly checking her watch, clearly waiting for Asher to make his grand entrance. Time ticked by, minute after minute. Asher never showed up. Elysia's face got uglier by the second. She finally sent her assistant to go find him. Boss Elysia! The assistant ran back in a total panic, clutching a letter. Mr. Asher is gone. He only left this behind. Elysia snatched the letter. After skimming it, her expression drastically changed. Then she aggressively chucked the letter right into my face. Caspian! Her voice sounded like it was being squeezed through clenched teeth. You better give me a perfect explanation for this. The letter fluttered down to my feet. I picked it up with shaking hands. It was signed by Asher. Elysia, by the time you read this, I'll already be gone. I love you so much, and I wanted to grow old with you. But Caspian threatened me using my parents' lives. I have to leave. From now on, we will never see each other again. It wasn't me. I handed the letter back to her, feeling totally numb. I never did any of this. You say you didn't do it every single time. Elysia grabbed me by the neck. But you do every single dirty deed. I struggled to breathe, but stubbornly locked eyes with her. I really don't know anything. But of course, Elysia didn't buy it. She was absolutely convinced that I had forced Asher away. To force me to spit out Asher's whereabouts, she went full supervillain and had my parents tied to the roof of an abandoned skyscraper. Two elderly people dangling hundreds of meters in the air, their lives hanging by a single thin rope. Mom, Dad! I never in a million years imagined she was so insanely obsessed with Asher that she'd throw my parents off a building for him. My voice broke into shattered pieces, my mind on the verge of total collapse. I really don't know. I didn't even know when he left. Elysia, I beg you, let my parents go. They are innocent. Elysia just let out a cold sneer and raised her hand in a signal. A bodyguard immediately pulled out a dagger and started slowly, methodically slicing the lifeline rope. No! The awful sound of the blade sawing through the rope grated against my nerves like a rusty saw. I really don't know. I dropped to my knees with a thud, my forehead practically bleeding from hitting the ground. She leaned down, pinching the back of my neck, her eyes like freezing glaciers. I swear, I don't know anything. If I was the one who sent him away, may I die a horrible death. Let me die horribly, is that enough? The bodyguard kept cutting the lifeline. My eyes were full of absolute despair as I looked up at her. For a split second, I wondered if this ruthless, cold-blooded woman was really the same person who chopped off her own fingers to die with me in our past life. Just as the rope was literally a hair's breadth from snapping, a guard burst in. Boss Elysia, we found Mr. Asher. He's at the airport. She instantly let go of me and sprinted out without looking back. The bodyguard scrambled to haul my parents back up. When they did, the rope had literally one thin thread left intact. I scrambled and crawled over to them. Only when I touched my parents' freezing hands did I finally dare to wail out loud. Mom! Dad! The deep bone-exposing rope burns on my mother's wrists, and the bloody scrapes on my father's back from the rough concrete wall. They stabbed into my heart like sharp blades. In the ambulance, my mom shakily wiped my tears. Caspian! She used to be so heartbroken if you got a tiny paper cut on your finger. At that moment, my eyes turned red, and I broke down, sobbing uncontrollably. The ambulance sirens pierced the night sky. I sat on the hospital corridor bench, fists clenched tight. The doctor said my parents were just suffering from severe shock. Their bodies were generally fine. I let out a massive breath of relief and gently closed their hospital room door. At the end of the hall, Asher's hysterical crying suddenly echoed out. I looked up to see medical staff rushing a gurney past me. Elysia was lying on it, her white shirt completely soaked in blood, her beautiful face drained of all color. Asher was clinging to her hand, crying his lungs out. I'm sorry, it's all my fault. You came to stop my plane and bring me back, and I still fought you for the steering wheel and tried to jump out of the car. Elysia weakly lifted her hand and used her thumb to wipe away his tears. As long as you don't leave, I'll do anything. My heart violently seized up. I turned around and walked away fast. For the next few days, I stayed at the hospital to take care of my parents. Every morning, I simmered a pot of nutritious soup, watching my parents drink it spoonful by spoonful. The nurse's gossip constantly floated down the hallway into my ears. Boss Elysia spoils Mr. Asher way too much. She's hurt so badly, but she still spends every day trying to make him smile. Yeah, I heard Mr. Asher woke up in the middle of the night craving cake from Dawn Bakery, and Boss Elysia, while lying in her hospital bed, ordered someone to go buy it immediately. My parents looked at me with deep worry, but I just kept peeling an apple with a perfectly normal expression, acting as if I hadn't heard a single word. Caspian, my mom hesitated. Mom, I'm fine. I chopped the apple into neat little cubes. I really don't love her anymore. A week later, my parents' condition stabilized. Caspian, we've recovered. You go back and pack our luggage. My dad patted my shoulder. We are leaving soon, and once we do, we're probably never coming back. You need to tie up any loose ends. Okay, I nodded. I went back to the villa. I was only halfway done packing when the door was suddenly pushed open. Elysia stood in the doorway, her face slightly dark. Asher suffered a lot of shock these past few days. Go to the temple and pray for an amulet of peace for him. Her tone brooked no argument, as if she was giving orders to a maid. If this were the past, I absolutely would have refused. But now I just nodded numbly. Okay. The temple was wreathed in morning mist. I did a full kowtow for every single one of the 999 steps up the mountain. My knees were ground into a bloody mess, but I couldn't even feel the pain. When I stood up, I accidentally caught sight of an ancient Bodhi tree. The tree was covered in red wishing ribbons, fluttering gently in the wind. Curiosity dragged me closer, but when I read the words written on the silk, I felt like I had been struck by lightning. May Caspian be safe and joyful. Caspian, Elysia prays for your peace and good health. I hope Caspian will fall in love with me. Every single red ribbon was a testament to Elysia's past, profound devotion to me. The earliest one dated all the way back to our high school days. The most recent one was from right before our wedding. I let out a bitter laugh and walked into the main hall. This time, I didn't just get the peace amulet Asher demanded. I also went out of my way to get a pair of marriage amulets. Before leaving, I borrowed a pair of scissors from the head monk. I went back to the Bodhi tree, cut down every single love-filled wishing ribbon, threw them all into the incense burner, and burned them to ashes. Benefactor, what are you doing? A little novice monk asked me, looking utterly confused. Severing earthly ties, I replied softly. Going down the mountain, I handed the peace amulet and the marriage amulets to Elysia together. What's this? She frowned, holding up the pair of marriage amulets. Marriage amulets. My tone was 100% sincere. I hope you and Asher grow old together. My eyes were as calm as a placid lake. Elysia stared at me deeply. Do you really mean that? I nodded. Of course, Elysia frowned. She looked at me for a good while, looking like she wanted to say something, but ultimately she said nothing at all and just turned away. A few days later was the Elysia family banquet. I originally had zero intention of going, but remembering Grandpa Elysia, whom I hadn't seen in ages, I changed my clothes and went anyway. I was leaving soon. No matter what, I had to say a proper goodbye to Grandpa. As soon as I arrived at the old estate, I saw Elysia walking in, holding Asher's hand for everyone to see, bringing a sugar baby to an official family banquet. This was a literal slap in my face. But honestly, I didn't feel any pain, nor did I care. I completely ignored the whispering crowd and headed straight to Grandpa's bedroom. Grandpa, Elysia and I are divorced. As soon as I walked in, I got straight to the point and told Grandpa Elysia about my plans to leave. Hearing this, Grandpa bolted upright in bed and quickly grabbed my hand. Child, are you just mad at Elysia? Listen to me, she definitely loves you. That little toy boy she's keeping around must just be a misunderstanding. Grandpa, I chuckled bitterly. Please don't try to persuade me. I've thought this through very clearly. Based on everything she's done to me lately, regardless of what her actual feelings for Asher are, it's absolutely impossible for us to ever be together again. Sensing the pain and absolute resolve in my tone, Grandpa let out a long sigh. Fine, it's her who doesn't have the blessing. Caspian, remember this. Even if you are no longer my grandson-in-law in the future, you will always be my most beloved little grandson. As long as I have breath in my body, that little toy boy will never cross the threshold of the Elysia family. My nose stings. In our past life, Grandpa protected me exactly like this too. Grandpa, you should rest. I stood up to excuse myself. I'll go pour you a glass of warm milk. I went out to get the milk. When I returned and was just about to knock, I heard a muffled noise from inside. You old fossil! You dare try to stop me from becoming the Elysia family's son-in-law? I'll kill you! Asher's voice hissed through the half-open door. The blood in my veins instantly froze solid. I shoved the door wide open and saw Asher forcefully pressing a pillow directly over Grandpa's face. The old man's wrinkled hands were weakly scratching at the bedsheets, his movements already slowing down. What are you doing? I lunged forward and shoved Asher away. The pillow dropped to the floor. Grandpa's face was purple, and he had already lost consciousness. Help! Call an ambulance! My screams brought everyone running. Elysia was the first one through the door. Seeing the scene, her face changed drastically. Grandpa! She scooped up the old man and sprinted out. As she rushed past me, her eyes were as cold as ice. The hospital corridor lights were painfully, blindingly white. The operating room light stayed on for the entire night. I sat on the bench, my hands shaking uncontrollably. Asher leaned against Elysia, occasionally shooting me venomous glares. When dawn finally broke, the doctor pushed the doors open. Boss Elysia, the old master, was deprived of oxygen for too long. There is a high probability he will remain in a vegetative state. Elysia kicked the door so hard it literally dented. Inside the VIP room, Elysia stared at the two of us with a terrifyingly dark expression. What exactly happened? It was him! Asher instantly pointed at me and shrieked. He tried to murder Grandpa. When I walked in, he was suffocating Grandpa with a pillow. I stared at him in utter disbelief. Say that again? I'll say it 100 times, it's the truth. Asher put on a pitiful crying act. Elysia, you have no idea, he almost killed me too. Elysia's eyes grew colder and colder. Caspian, Grandpa treated you so well. How could you be so vicious? It wasn't me. My voice shook. It was Asher. I saw him do it with my own eyes. Enough, Elysia barked, cutting me off. Caspian, you must pay the price for this. 2 bodyguards immediately stepped up and pinned my arms. Elysia, I struggled. Just believe me this one time. Just this once, Elysia scoffed coldly. Take him bungee jumping. In the freezing early hours of late autumn, the amusement park was completely deserted. I was dragged to the highest drop tower ride. The cold wind made my entire body violently shake. Strap him in, Elysia ordered icily. My face went dead pale. No, Elysia, you know I'm terrified of heights. It's exactly because I know that I'm making sure you remember this lesson. Elysia personally buckled me in. When you're ready to tell the truth, we'll let you down. The drop tower slowly ascended. I squeezed my eyes shut. By the time the machine hit the peak, I was shaking like a leaf in a hurricane. The machine suddenly plummeted. The absolute weightlessness made my heart practically stop beating. I screamed, my tears scattered by the wind into the night sky. Once, twice, 3 times. When the sky started showing the first light of dawn, Elysia finally called it off. When I was unstrapped, I was practically delirious. My lips were chewed to a bloody pulp. Have you thought it through? Elysia looked down at me from her high horse. I opened my mouth, suddenly vomited a mouthful of fresh blood, and completely blacked out. In my daze, I thought I heard Elysia screaming my name. But quickly, endless darkness swallowed up whatever consciousness I had left. The reek of disinfectant made my temples throb. I opened my eyes and saw Elysia standing by my bed, holding 3 plane tickets in her slender fingers. Caspian, you've been a total menace lately. First, bullying Asher, then hurting Grandpa. I don't want to look at your face right now. She slammed the tickets onto my nightstand with a cold face. Take your parents and go cool off abroad. When you've repented, I'll bring you back. I stared at the plane tickets and suddenly found the whole situation hilarious. In our last life, she chopped off her fingers to die with me. In this life, she couldn't wait to exile me to the ends of the earth. I didn't say a single word and silently accepted the tickets. Seeing me so obedient, Elysia frowned. You're just agreeing to this? You have nothing to say? I slowly looked up. I had a million things I wanted to say. I wanted to say she trusted the wrong person. I wanted to say she betrayed my true feelings. I wanted to say Grandpa was framed, but in the end, I just softly shook my head. Boss Elysia, a nurse knocked gently. Mr. Asher says his chest hurts. He's been asking for you. Got it. Tell him I'll be there in a minute, Elysia replied. She turned back to me, voice freezing again. To make sure you don't run off halfway, I'm personally escorting you to the airport. On the way to the airport, I secretly texted my parents. Mom, Dad, bring my divorce certificate. Let's meet at the airport. We're leaving right now. After sending the text, I tilted my head slightly. Elysia's side profile reflected in the car window looked exceptionally cold. When I first reincarnated, I was ecstatic. I wanted to crazily make it up to her, clinging to her every day like a shadow. Back then, I loved watching her drive. I thought even her slender fingers gripping the steering wheel were incredibly sexy. But looking at her now, my heart was deader than a doornail. When we got to the airport, Elysia stopped the car. I'll walk you in. The departure hall was packed with people. Elysia was originally planning to watch me go through security, but her phone suddenly rang. It was Asher. Asher. Her tone instantly went soft and squishy. Don't be scared. I'll come back and keep you company right now. She hung up the phone, didn't even spare me a second glance, turned around and marched away. I stood there, watching her back disappear into the crowd. Then I walked over to my parents. Caspian, here's your divorce certificate. My dad handed over the little red booklet. I took it, a smile of total liberation finally breaking out on my face. I took the 3 tickets to Paris that Elysia gave me, ripped them into confetti, and chucked them straight into the trash. Then, I went to the counter and bought 3 tickets to Switzerland. Mom, Dad, let's go. 10 minutes later, our family of 3 walked through the boarding gate, never looking back. Meanwhile, Elysia rushed back to the hospital at breakneck speed. Just as she stepped out of the elevator to go to Asher's room, a breaking news alert suddenly hijacked the nearby TV screens. Latest update, flight MH730, en route from Beijing to Paris, crashed shortly after takeoff. None of the 132 passengers on board survived. Hearing this, Elysia's footsteps hard stopped. Her blood instantly froze solid. MH730, wasn't that the exact flight she bought for me? Smash! Her phone slipped from her hand, the screen shattering into a spiderweb across the tiles. The custom notification ringtone she set exclusively for Asher kept buzzing, sounding like a power drill boring straight into her skull. Just an hour ago, that melody sounded like sweet honey. Now, every note felt like barbed wire. Elysia's eyes burned. The bold black letters of the news headlines seared into her retinas, melting like hot tar and pouring straight into her brain. MH730 crashed 3 minutes after takeoff. No survivors dead. Caspian is dead. No way. Impossible. Just an hour ago, she had personally dropped me off at the airport. She remembered my voice, my eyes, even the color of the clothes I was wearing with absolute clarity. How could someone so vibrant and alive just suddenly be gone? No, he must still be alive. Elysia scrambled to pick up her phone, her fingers furiously tapping the screen. It took her over a minute just to successfully unlock it. The flight number that should have been cruising through the stratosphere was now floating in her push notifications, followed by the 2 glaring blood-red words, flight crash. Elysia pressed her fingers against the glass screen. trying to focus her vision, but a freezing sensation crawled up her fingertips, turning her entire arm stiff as a board. She belatedly realized she was violently shaking. No, the entire building was shaking. She had no idea how she bolted out of the hospital, nor how she got into her car. In the pitch-black, rainy night, the black Maybach flashed across the elevated highway. Elysia floored the gas pedal to the absolute max, her bloodshot eyes locked dead ahead. Faster, faster, even faster! The airport in the early hours of the morning was overflowing with people. Screams, wails of grief, sobbing, and furious curses all blended into one chaotic mess. Why? Why did the plane crash? Give my family back to me. I'll kill you all. The massive, overflowing grief of countless people morphed into an invisible giant hand, violently squeezing Elysia's body until she couldn't breathe. She pushed her way through the sea of people with agonizing effort. Everything unfolding before her eyes felt like slow motion. She saw people pulling at each other, people screaming. The expressions on their faces were identical. Sheer, absolute agony. She used every ounce of her strength to squeeze to the front counter, using a hoarse voice to ask the staff member a question. But she opened her mouth for a long time without making a single sound. "Hello, whose family member are you looking for?" the staff shouted over the noise. The word victim slammed into her brain like a sledgehammer, causing her ears to ring and the room to spin. Elysia gripped the edge of the counter so hard her knuckles turned white. "Caspian! I am Caspian's family." Perhaps afraid the staff didn't hear her, she repeated it again. Elysia had a million questions she wanted to ask. Did the plane really crash? Did everyone really die? Is Caspian truly gone? But having reached this point, she couldn't utter a single syllable. She could only act like a puppet on strings, manipulated by the staff. Whatever they asked, she answered. Whatever they told her to do, she did. Finally, the staff handed her a piece of paper. "This is the casualty confirmation document for Mr. Caspian. Please sign here." A paper stamped with my black and white ID photo was shoved in front of Elysia's face. She forced her eyes wide open, trying desperately to read the words on the page. But no matter how hard she rubbed her eyes, she couldn't make out a single letter. In a panic, Elysia grabbed the hand of the person next to her. "Excuse me, could you please help me read this? What does it say?" The person was originally furious, but upon seeing the paper, their anger turned into pity. "My condolences. It says, your husband also passed away in this plane crash." Instantly, the taste of rust surged up Elysia's throat. Static blurred the edges of her vision. The words "passed away" combusted deep in her consciousness. The ashes dropped straight into her stomach, triggering a chain reaction of violent spasms. Elysia stumbled backward until she crashed into a pillar, sliding down onto the floor like all the bones had been ripped out of her body. Suddenly, she heard a sound leaking out of her own throat, the whimpering of a wounded baby animal. It sounded terrifyingly unfamiliar, like a cry of grief borrowed from someone else's chest. Everything that happened next felt like a fever dream to Elysia. Prompted by the intercom announcements, she moved like the rest of the hollowed-out, numb crowds, signing papers, claiming belongings. But belongings was a generous word. It was just a tiny handful of ash the police and forensics managed to scrape off the seat Caspian was assigned to. This pathetic pile of ash was solemnly placed into a funerary urn. After identification and confirmation, Elysia signed for it, and the urn was officially handed over to her. Elysia, acting like a soulless wooden doll, numbly cradled my urn and walked out of the airport. Along the way, countless staff members looked at her with pity, offering their condolences and apologies. But she seemed entirely deaf to them, dragging feet that felt like they were cast in lead, inching her way out of the airport. Then she mechanically started her car and drove in the direction of home. When Elysia arrived, she found a crowd of people waiting at her front door. It was her squad of besties and of course Asher. These friends had watched her and Caspian's journey from their wedding day until now. Even though she supposedly didn't like Caspian anymore, officially, he was still their brother-in-law. Out of basic decency, they all came to send him off on his final journey. As for Asher, he was literally in the hospital faking an injury, but upon hearing about the plane crash on the news, a tidal wave of ecstatic joy completely scrambled his brain. Now that Elysia's grandfather was in a vegetative coma and Caspian was dead, it felt like God himself was clearing his path. Marrying Elysia was practically a done deal now. Thinking of this, Asher turned to look at Elysia getting out of the car. He slapped on his best devastated mourning face, walked up and tried to support her arm. "Elysia, my condolences. You still have me." But Elysia walked right past him like he was invisible, stumbling her way up the front steps. Left behind, Asher stared at his empty hands, a flash of pure resentment crossing his eyes. A second later, someone gasped, "Elysia, watch out!" Asher snapped his head up just in time to see Elysia's legs give out completely, crashing straight down onto her knees on the hard stone stairs. His face changed, and he rushed up to grab her. But Elysia numbly shook her head, her eyes totally hollow. "I'm fine, leave me alone." Seeing her in this state, everyone exchanged deeply worried looks. Someone, unable to bear it, spoke up. "Elysia, we know Caspian's death was horribly sudden, but now that he's gone, isn't it more convenient for you and Asher?" "Yeah, exactly," others chimed in. "Back then, you told us yourself that you and Caspian were just a business transaction. No feelings involved. Why are you torturing yourself like this for him?" Elysia maintained her kneeling posture, head bowed. After an eternity, they finally heard her muttering to herself. "No feelings? How could there be no feelings? He clearly, with me, hearing the words no feelings. A spark lit up in Asher's eyes. Just now he was so annoyed about being ignored that he almost forgot their main narrative. Right, Alicia and Caspian had no feelings for each other. She was definitely just in shock because he died so suddenly. She hadn't processed it yet, which is why she ignored him. So, Asher quickly jogged up and leaned down to help her up. Exactly, Alicia. You didn't even like Caspian. If he's dead, he's dead. Seeing you like this makes my heart ache. Nobody knows which exact word from Asher snapped Alicia's final nerve. She violently jerked her head up and shoved Asher backwards so hard he crashed onto the ground. Her besties scrambled to pick him up, demanding to know what crazy phase Alicia was going through. As a response, Alicia kicked all of them out. Get out! All of you, get out! Slam! The massive villa doors were bolted shut. Alicia cradled my urn, dropped to her knees with a heavy thud, and refused to get up. A sound tore from her mouth, exactly like the whimpering of a severely wounded beast. Caspian, how could I possibly not like you? Whether in our last life or this one, I have loved you so deeply. Yep, plot twist. Alicia was reborn too. In our previous life, after she threw herself into the fire with my corpse, she fully expected to burn in hell. Instead, she blinked and found herself reborn back to the beginning of our marriage. At first, she was over the moon. She finally got to see Caspian again. Last time, due to her negligence, I was scammed by my childhood friend, kidnapped and put through absolute hell. In this life, she swore to treat me right and expose my fake friend Valerian for the snake he was. But when she saw the distant, freezing cold look in my eyes, reality slapped her awake. I wasn't reborn yet. To the current me, she was still the wife I loathed, but Alicia was bitter about it. She had loved me for 2 entire lifetimes. Why wouldn't I spare her even a single glance? So, taking the brilliant, idiotic advice of her besties, Alicia forcefully locked away her love and started treating me with the exact same coldness I showed her. Her goal was simple: make me yield first. Make me realize how incredibly important her love was to me. If I finally woke up, realized my mistakes, and turned back to cherish her, then we could live happily ever after. If not, Alicia was prepared to let go and let Valerian and me have each other. However, plans always fall apart when reality hits. Alicia never expected that I would suddenly become reborn, just like her. When she saw me joyfully hug her, bawling my eyes out, apologizing for being blind, and swearing to treat her perfectly from now on, Alicia felt like she had just won the universal lottery. But her excitement quickly crashed into paranoia. She was terrified that I was pulling the exact same stunt as the last life, using sweet nothings to bewitch her, only to immediately elope with Valerian behind her back. Even though I swore up and down that I was a changed man and didn't love Valerian anymore, Alicia, desperate not to get played again, hardened her heart and continued to treat me like garbage. She wanted to teach me a lesson, so she threw her original let's be nice rebirth plan straight into the incinerator. Since I was reborn and wanted to make it up to her, Alicia decided to give me the grand opportunity to show exactly how far I was willing to go to compensate her. So she doubled down on the cruelty. Maybe afraid she wasn't being ruthless enough, she even hired a literal actor to play her sugar baby, just to constantly hurt me. She forced my mother onto the operating table to donate a liver to Asher. She tied me to electroshock machines and strapped me to drop towers. She even went as far as dangling my parents off a building as shark bait just to make me spit out Asher's location. Watching the love in my eyes slowly drain away until I became a numb, empty shell. It would be a lie to say Alicia wasn't panicking. But then she justified it. Didn't he say he loved me? Why can't he endure this tiny bit of pain? In our past life, I suffered thousands of times worse than this. Not to mention, he even framed Asher out of jealousy and put my grandpa in a coma. So in the end, Alicia decided to ship me overseas to cool off. When I finally calmed down, she would go pick me up. If I came back, admitted my faults, and learned my lesson, Alicia would dramatically confess that she was also reborn. We would clear the air, forgive each other, and start completely fresh. Oh, what a beautifully delusional plan. Unfortunately for her, the universe had a different plot in mind. The plane I was on crashed. 0 survivors. Thinking about this, Alicia viciously slapped her own face several times. Why did it have to end up like this? She never actually wanted me to die. If she had known, she never would have put me on that flight and sent me away. If she hadn't done that, I would probably still be standing right in front of her. In this exact moment, Alicia realized she screwed up. Screwed up to an astronomical degree. When I first reincarnated and said I wanted to make it up to her, she should have just confessed that she was reborn too. There were a million ways to let me make amends. Why did she have to choose the most insanely extreme route of hiring a fake lover to trigger me? However, her regret arrived way too late. I was dead. She couldn't even recover my actual ashes. Alicia broke down into a complete wailing mess. Crying and crying, a sweet metallic taste suddenly surged up her throat. A mouthful of fresh blood sprayed out. Her vision went completely black and she lost all consciousness. Alicia had a very long dream. In the dream, I was running toward her, my eyes brimming with love. I scooped her into my arms and planted a massive kiss on her face. Alicia, I like you. Alicia instinctively leaned in to kiss me back, but the dream suddenly shattered. I disintegrated into ash right in her arms. No, don't, Caspian. Alicia woke up screaming in pure terror, shooting straight up in bed. She found herself lying in a massive bed, an IV drip hooked into her arm. Standing next to her were Asher, her assistant, and a completely unfamiliar man. Miss Elysia, my condolences. I am Mr. Caspian's divorce attorney. The moment the word divorce was spoken, Elysia snapped her head up to stare at him. What did you say? Asher's eyes instantly lit up like a Christmas tree at the word divorce. He was just about to open his mouth when the assistant, sensing the explosive tension, quickly shoved him out of the room. My divorce lawyer pulled the little red booklet out of his briefcase and laid out the facts for Elysia. A month ago, Mr. Caspian hired me to handle his divorce proceedings, explicitly requesting to leave the marriage with 0 assets. He also instructed me that no matter what happened, I must personally deliver this divorce certificate into your hands. Oh right, Mr. Caspian also asked me to pass on a message. He said, "Everything in the past is over. I wish you well in the future. Let us never see each other again." With that, the lawyer placed the divorce certificate on the nightstand right in front of Elysia. Alicia's brain completely flatlined. She stared blankly at the booklet. The dark red cover gleamed coldly under the bedside lamp. It took her an eternity to slowly reach out for it, but the second her finger brushed the cover, she yanked her hand back like she'd been electrocuted. Their marriage certificate was a vibrant, gold-stamped red. This divorce certificate was a dark, coagulated blood red. The edges even had the jagged, rough indentations from the civil registry's steel stamp. The glass of water on the nightstand suddenly started vibrating. She looked down and realized it was her own hand violently shaking. The pages rustled. The word divorce practically burned a hole through her retinas. This is impossible. How could she suddenly be divorced from? For a split second, Elysia even doubted if I was actually reborn at all. Did I actually say those things? Did I actually love her or not? Her throat felt incredibly tight, like she had swallowed a jagged block of ice. Every inch it slid down got sliced open, leaking wet blood all the way up to her mouth. When exactly did I give her the divorce agreement? A sudden memory sliced through the fog. Right? That day, the assistant brought her a stack of files. There really was a divorce agreement mixed in. At that time, she was so focused on catering to Asher that she didn't even read it. Even later, when I walked away looking weirdly relieved, she just thought I was acting strange. Now, it finally hit her like a ton of bricks. Caspian had already decided to divorce her way back then. Smack! She slammed the certificate back onto the nightstand, making the lawyer jump. Elysia saw her own ghastly pale face reflected in the floor-to-ceiling window across the room. Behind her reflection was a half-empty walk-in closet. My most frequently worn white button-ups were gone. Only empty hangers swayed slightly in the night draft. A faint trace of warmth suddenly touched her fingertips. She flipped to the page with the registration date. May 23rd, the exact day my plane crashed. That was the day Elysia personally handed me the plane tickets and told me she was sending me out of the country to cool off. That day, the moment I boarded the flight, the registry's steel stamp officially branded our divorce certificate. Whether it was me as a living person or my marriage to her, everything had completely, utterly abandoned her. Elysia's vision started whiting out. The divorce certificate warped into a red-hot iron brand in her eyes. A sharp pain stabbed her palm. She looked down and realized she was gripping the booklet with a death grip. Exactly like how, in our past life, he gripped my hand with a death grip, begging me not to go to Valerian. The taste of rust rushed up her throat again, and another streak of fresh blood spilled from the corner of her mouth. The world began to black out in waves. In the darkness, a piercing ringing erupted in her ears like a tsunami crashing through her eardrums. The date stamped on the certificate echoed on an endless loop in her head. May 23rd, 2025. On the 23rd, she had lost me. All over again. 3 days later, at the cemetery. Under torrential rain, an army of black umbrellas looked like a moving prison cage. The divorce certificate in Elysia's pocket was soaked through by the rain. The ink of both their signatures was actively dissolving and washing away on the wet paper. Elysia stared blankly at my photo on this tombstone. Scenes from just a few moments ago played on a loop in her head. She had stepped out of the black hearse cradling my urn, walked the winding mountain path to the gravesite, and dropped to both knees. She slowly placed my urn into the ground. Then, using her own bare hands, she scooped up the dirt, handful by handful, covering my urn completely. Finally, she stood aside, watching the workers seal the grave with cement, permanently cutting my urn off from the rest of the world. Elysia slowly crouched down, reaching out to wipe the rain off my tombstone. But her fingertips only phased through the damp, empty air. She was transported back to the year she was 18. That year, Elysia saw me on campus for the first time. With just one glance, her eyes couldn't see anyone else ever again. From then on, she was trapped in a bitter, one-sided crush. She wrote love poems for me. In a sunlit piano room, she played for me as I walked by. She strategically happened to walk past the courts when my friends and I were playing basketball. Unfortunately, my eyes never once landed on her. I only saw Valerian. It would be a lie to say she wasn't heartbroken, but Elysia didn't give up. Later, through a corporate alliance, she successfully married the man of her dreams. Elysia swore to give me the absolute best of everything, but my eyes were still only fixed on Valerian. She tried, she fought, but all she got in return was me eloping, resulting in both of us burning to death in a fire. In this life, both of us reincarnated. We originally could have communicated our feelings and lived a new, happy life. But because of her own twisted ego, she pushed me to the absolute edge, step by step, until it finally killed me. The light in Alicia's eyes slowly died out, turning into absolute, dead silence. In our last life, she died holding my corpse, and then she was reborn. So this time, if she died right here in front of my tombstone, could she trigger another respawn? If she did, could she finally get me back properly? Thinking of this, Alicia moved like a stiff marionette puppet, pulling a knife out of her pocket and slowly aiming it directly at her own heart. Just 1 second before she plunged the blade in, a frantic ringtone suddenly shattered the silence. "Boss!" The old master woke up. The butler's ecstatic voice yelled through the phone. Clang! The knife slipped from Alicia's hand and hit the floor. Alicia couldn't care less about anything else. She scrambled to her feet and rushed to the hospital like a madwoman. When she arrived, Grandpa's VIP room was swarming with doctors. "A miracle! This is an absolute miracle!" The doctors marveled as they ran checks on the old man. After confirming he was perfectly fine, they cleared the room, leaving only Alicia and Grandpa. Grandpa stared blankly at her for a second, then immediately asked, "Caspian, where is he?" Alicia froze, and a massive wave of agony flooded her eyes again. Grandpa was old. He couldn't take another massive shock. Alicia clenched her fists, desperately trying to keep her emotions in check to tell the story, but intentionally burying the truth of my death. He tried to kill you last time. I already sent him abroad. When he admits his mistakes, I'll bring him back. Hearing this, Grandpa furiously propped himself up in bed. Absolute utter bullshit. How could Caspian ever hurt me? It was obviously that little toy boy you keep around. Getting agitated, Grandpa started coughing hard, scaring Alicia into quickly patting his back. Her eyes were wide with pure shock. "What did you say? How is that possible?" She knew Asher's character. Asher was so innocent he wouldn't even step on a bug. How could he possibly try to murder Grandpa? Grandpa was practically foaming at the mouth with rage. "If you don't believe me, go check the security cameras." Cameras? Alicia remembered now. Back when Grandpa was attacked, she actually did order a check on the cameras. But Asher grabbed her sleeve, crying buckets of tears, swearing it wasn't him. At the time, my track record in her eyes was terrible, so Alicia didn't hesitate to believe Asher. Now that Grandpa was demanding she check the tapes again, she felt it was pointless. Even if she checked, wouldn't it just show me as the culprit? And besides, I was already gone. She didn't want to dig into it anymore. But Grandpa was absolutely relentless. "Even if you want to play favorites, Asher needs to give me the truth. If you won't check, I'll go check them myself." Seeing Grandpa this fired up, Alicia had to stop him and personally went back to the villa to pull the footage, only to be informed by the butler. The cameras broke the exact day the old master was attacked. Alicia's eyebrows knitted together. She finally felt something incredibly fishy was going on. Right at that moment, a maid walked up hesitantly. "Boss Alicia, I have a video right here." It turns out, the maid had been heading to Grandpa's room to close the window when she witnessed the horrifying scene. Terrified, she hid in the closet and secretly recorded the whole thing on her phone. The reason she never dared to show it was, 1, she was afraid Alicia wouldn't believe her, and 2, she didn't want to cross Asher. But now that the old master was awake and backing her up, she finally had the guts to hand it over. Alicia snatched the phone and hit play. Within seconds, her smartwatch's heart rate monitor spiked over 120 BPM. In the video, Grandpa finished talking to me and lay down to rest. Shortly after he closed his eyes, a man in a white button-up shirt sneaked in. The giant diamond ring flashing on his hand was the exact unique piece Alicia had bought for Asher at the auction the day before the banquet. A second later, the man turned around, revealing Asher's face. Gone was the obedient, docile little lamb he played in front of Alicia. His face was twisted in pure malice. He lunged forward, grabbed a pillow, and violently slammed it over Grandpa's face. He even aggressively spat out, "You old fossil! You dare try to stop me from marrying Alicia? Are you begging for death?" The moment those vile, vulgar words exploded from Asher's mouth, Alicia's smartwatch let out a high-pitched warning, beep. The blood pressure graph on the screen rocketed upward, sounding exactly like the piercing ambulance sirens from that awful night. Alicia coldly ordered the butler to call Asher over, and call the police while you're at it. When Asher pushed the door open, Alicia was sitting on the sofa with her back to him. The massive TV screen in front of her was playing the video of Asher murdering Grandpa on a continuous loop, and the coffee table was entirely buried in a mountain of evidence, proving every single time Asher framed me. Alicia ordered her assistant to dig all this up the exact second she realized Asher was the real killer. Alicia knew Asher wasn't a saint, but she never imagined he was this deeply, rottenly evil. The sheer agony of realizing she had repeatedly hurt me over a man like this made her heart undergo another violent spasm. The smartwatch on her wrist screamed another critical warning, but Alicia acted like she didn't even hear it, sitting on the sofa as still as a marble statue, waiting for Asher's arrival. Before pushing open the villa doors, Asher was practically vibrating with excitement. Ever since I died, Alicia had abruptly told him his contract was over and kicked him out of the villa. It happened so fast it gave him whiplash. He had gotten entirely too used to living in absolute luxury. Going back to being a nobody felt like a nightmare. But Asher wasn't too worried. He figured Alicia was just temporarily insane with grief over my death. Plus, over the past few months, she had been insanely, passionately in love with him, hurting me countless times just for his sake. There was zero chance she was actually willing to kick him to the curb. He bet that after some time passed, she'd send someone to bring him right back. And sure enough, the villa butler personally drove to his ratty apartment to pick him up. In that moment, Asher was ecstatic. He assumed Alicia had finally moved on, sorted out her feelings, and realized he was her true love. He walked in fully expecting to be handed a new permanent title. But pushing open those doors, he wasn't met with a fairy tale ending. He walked straight into hell. Explain. Alicia didn't even look at him. She just stared at the TV, her tone flat but colder than the dead of winter. Asher's face drained from rosy pink to ghost white in an instant. He felt like the white fog of her breath was condensing into physical swords in the air. Alicia, these are all fake. You have to believe me. How could I ever do something like this? Even with mountains of witnesses and hard evidence rushed right in his face, Asher clamped his jaw and denied it all. Because he knew damn well that the second he confessed, it was game over. Thinking fast, Asher deployed his ultimate weapon, the exact same pitiful routine he always used on her. He dropped to his knees, his eyes instantly turning bright red, and reached out to grab her hand looking like a kicked puppy. Alicia! Whack! Before he could finish, Alicia grabbed the massive stack of documents and brutally whipped them right across his face. The sharp edges of the paper slashed Asher's cheek, leaving trails of bloody paper cuts. The sheer force of the impact sent Asher crashing backward onto the floor. Alicia suddenly started laughing. She stood up, her custom-made high heels stepping directly over the scattered papers as she walked toward him. She deliberately crushed the expensive dessert box Asher had brought to suck up to her. Asher, you are just a pathetic little toy boy. Where did you get the audacity to do all this? Actually, scratch that. You aren't even a real toy boy. You're literally just a hired actor. Outside the floor-to-ceiling windows, lightning violently cracked across the sky. Asher caught his own reflection in the glass and felt like he was melting. His meticulously maintained, perfect image was completely utterly destroyed in this torrential downpour of evidence. Alicia slowly crouched down in front of him. She shot her hand out and clamped it around his throat, squeezing like she was trying to pop his head off. The moment her hand locked around his neck, Asher smelled her perfume. It used to be his favorite scent in the world. Now it smelled exactly like a demon crawling out of the abyss. No, I really didn't. Asher was still trying to lie his way out. He desperately propped himself up, trying to claw at her leg. I've always strictly followed your rules. Why would I ever do this? Originally, Asher was just a painfully average college student. Someone like Alicia, a filthy rich heiress, was someone he could only ever dream of seeing on TV. So when Alicia actually appeared in front of him and offered to pay him to play a role, Asher felt like he hit the jackpot and agreed immediately. Even though everyone warned him that rich people like her were just playing around, and if he caught real feelings he'd end up destroyed, Asher didn't care, because he had been obsessed with Alicia for a long time. From the first time he saw her on the news, he swore if he ever got married, it had to be to a woman exactly like her. Everyone told him he was delusional, so when he finally got this golden ticket to be near her, he grabbed it with both hands. Alicia's rules were incredibly simple. Act like her sugar baby and put on a massive PDA show in front of me. At first, Asher was a good little employee, but as Alicia treated him better and better, even seeming to prioritize him over her actual husband, Asher's ego inflated to the size of a blimp. He didn't want to just be a disposable side piece anymore. He wanted to be the husband. He wanted to be the son-in-law of the Azalizi Empire. In the beginning, he just pulled minor stunts to frame me or played mean pranks. When he noticed Alicia didn't care and didn't defend me, his guts grew. He started escalating his traps, eventually culminating in his attempt to murder Grandpa. His schemes weren't exactly criminal mastermind material, but because Alicia trusted him blindly every single time, he stopped worrying about getting caught, especially since the only witness to the murder attempt was currently in a vegetative state. He never, ever factored in the possibility of getting exposed. Caught completely off guard, he had no excuses prepared and could only default to aggressive denial. He thought that if he just stubbornly played the victim, Alicia would eventually let it slide like she always did. Unfortunately for him, Alicia wasn't actually stupid. Before, she was just too obsessed with testing my limits to see how far I'd go for her. As long as Asher didn't actually inflict physical harm on me, she turned a blind eye to his antics. She never anticipated that her total lack of boundaries would breed a monster. And during that entire period, my heart was already dead and numb. I didn't even bother to defend myself. Alicia, blinded by her own twisted game, didn't bother to investigate the truth. But now she absolutely wasn't going to let him off the hook. She stood up, looking down at him like the Grim Reaper delivering a final sentence. Since you enjoy framing people so much, you can go rot in a prison cell. I will personally make sure they take very good care of you inside. She placed extremely heavy emphasis on the words good care. Asher's face morphed into a mask of pure terror. The hand weakly gripping her skirt slipped off. Amidst his screaming and begging, police sirens sliced through the raging storm outside. A swarm of officers busted through the doors. No, I only did it because I love you. Alicia, you can't do this to me! Asher wailed hysterically, staring at her silhouetted back. He suddenly remembered a ballroom dance from a few months ago. Under a crystal chandelier, she had cradled his face and said, Asher, I will love you for the rest of my life. And yet here she was, pointing at the table for the cops. The evidence is all there. When the freezing steel handcuffs clicked shut around his wrists, Asher finally accepted his doom. He dropped his head and whispered, "Elysia, over these past few months, did you truly never love me at all?" The cops dragged him backward, his shoes dragging across the expensive carpets. "Not even a tiny bit?" The roaring wind and rain swallowed his final words, smashing them against the heavily bolted villa doors. Elysia never once looked back. Overnight, the elite circles of the capital city were flipped completely upside down. Nobody could believe that Elysia, the woman who was seemingly ready to die for Asher just a second ago, had abruptly snapped. Not only did she personally throw him in a maximum security prison, but she also broadcasted his entire list of crimes to the national news. All the way over in France, I saw the news too. In a street-side cafe shaded by sycamore trees, I sat by an open window, casually sipping my artisanal rose coffee. Back when I first heard that the flight I was supposed to be on crashed, I felt so insanely lucky. Thank God I didn't get on that plane. If I had, I couldn't even imagine how devastated my parents and family would be. In my mind, the reborn Elysia didn't love me at all. She wouldn't shed a single tear over my death. That's why she completely denied being reborn when I tried to test her. Back then, I really couldn't figure out why she suddenly stopped loving me. It wasn't until much later, chatting casually with some new friends in France, that I finally figured it out. It was probably resentment, right? Nobody in their right mind could get repeatedly hurt and literally die for someone they loved, only to respawn and fall back in love with that exact same person. I mean, look at myself. Even after I was reborn, getting tortured by her over and over again completely killed any leftover feelings I had. So when I pulled my fake death stunt, I deliberately didn't contact the airline to update my status. After all, nobody back home gave a damn about me anyway. Dead or alive, what did it matter? Even if Elysia heard I was dead, she probably wouldn't care. She was too busy playing house with Asher anyway. Or so I thought, until I saw the news today. The internet was flooded with eulogies and memorials written by Elysia across every single social media platform, dedicated to her late husband. Every single sentence dripped with agonizing, profound love. My phone screen glowed coldly in the morning fog. Those words felt like a rusty crowbar, violently prying open the iron box of memories I had permanently welded shut. A long time ago, when Elysia loved me the most, she wrote me a love letter every single day. Every word she wrote back then was exactly this sweet and devoted. I never expected that I could still be affected by her words today. Except this time, I wasn't moved. I just found it incredibly ironic. I honestly couldn't decipher what 4D chess Elysia was trying to play. Didn't she not love me? If she did, why lie about not being reborn? Why push me away? Why team up with Asher to torture me? Now that I'm dead, shouldn't she be popping champagne? Why is she putting on this grand performance of the heartbroken widow? Is she regretting putting me on the flight that killed me? Or did her brain short-circuit after I died, making her suddenly realize she actually still loved me? Whatever brand of regret she was experiencing, it meant absolutely nothing to me. My heart for her had flatlined a long time ago. In her world, I was a literal ghost. Having zero contact ever again was the absolute best scenario for both of us. With that thought, my finger kept scrolling down the screen. Then I hit another headline that actually made me raise an eyebrow. Asher officially sentenced and imprisoned today for intentional assault and attempted murder. The punctuation marks stared right back at me through the screen. The porcelain coffee cup in my hand clinked softly against the saucer. I realized I was shivering slightly. It wasn't from satisfaction. It wasn't from grief. It was just the sudden violent ripping off of a scab that revealed the rotting, unhealed wounds underneath. Memories of getting framed, burned, and electrocuted hit the rewind button in my brain, replaying vividly before finally evaporating into thin air. I closed my eyes. Then I opened them, looked back at the screen, closed the app, and locked my phone. Just like that, I took all those ripped open scabs and smoothed them back over like nothing happened. Because from the exact second I died, whatever melodrama Elysia and Asher cooked up was strictly none of my business. I needed to stop reading their trashy reality show updates and focus 100% on living my own fabulous life. I shoved my phone aside, picked up my iced coffee, and chugged the rest of it. My phone buzzed again, a calendar alert. Tonight, Sterling family banquet. I pushed the empty coffee cup away. When I stood up, the breeze from my trench coat knocked the last autumn leaf off the windowsill. In the reflection of the glass, my figure strolled calmly and elegantly into the sunlight. The late autumn dusk wrapped the Sterling manor like a sheet of golden silk. My car pulled up to the massive front gates. I stepped out, grabbing my prepared gifts with one hand, casually tossing the keys to the valet with the other. No need to put it in the garage. I'm driving back to my own place later tonight. The guard nodded respectfully and drove the car away. I carried the gifts up the steps and pushed open the massive carved mahogany doors. The freezing wind, smelling of fresh pine, followed my footsteps inside. The crystal chandeliers lit the dining hall up like a palace. My aunt, the current badass matriarch of the Sterling family, was just placing the final gourmet dish on the table. Hearing my footsteps, she turned around with a warm smile. The pearls on her earrings reflected the cozy glow of the fireplace perfectly. "Hurry up and come eat!" I gave a cheerful got it, handed my gifts to a maid, and went to wash my hands. When I came back, my mom emerged from the kitchen carrying a piping hot bowl of ginger soup. "It's freezing outside and you're wearing so little. Are you trying to catch a cold?" Her voice was overflowing with classic mom worry. She stood there staring at me until I chugged the entire bowl before she finally backed off. My aunt smiled fondly, clearly entirely on my mom's side. Make sure you wear your heavy coat later. Don't catch a chill. I nodded aggressively, and only then did the two ladies let me off the hook. As the luxurious silverware was arranged on the round table, Grandpa Sterling walked in, leaning heavily on his purple sandalwood cane with a dragon head handle. Let's eat, the old man announced. With that, everyone picked up their chopsticks. Because of the strict Sterling family rules, meals were eaten in absolute silence, save for the faint clinking of cutlery. And because of the whole fake death elopement drama with my parents, I absolutely did not dare to squeak a single syllable in front of Grandpa. After dinner, my parents were summoned to Grandpa's study for a chat. Seeing my incredibly stressed face, my aunt gently patted my hand and pulled me over to the sofa. Don't worry, Grandpa isn't going to execute your parents. They are his son and daughter-in-law, after all. Hearing that, the anxiety in my eyes faded into a silent sigh. Every time we came to the main estate, Grandpa practically scheduled a TED Talk just to scold my parents. I had tried explaining to him multiple times that the disaster of my marriage was mostly my own fault, not my parents. But Grandpa was incredibly stubborn. He firmly believed my parents were the villains. With the power of the Sterling family, I never needed to marry into the Elysia family in the first place. But my parents had pushed for it, and I ended up marrying Elysia. When Grandpa found out back then, he was absolutely furious. He was a modern man. He supported free love. He actually liked my childhood friend Valerian. Hearing about the arranged marriage, he immediately flew back to the country to tear my parents a new one. He yelled that no matter how much the Sterling business struggled, we didn't need to sell out to the Elysia family. But my parents were stubborn as mules and insisted I had to marry Elysia. Both sides fought like cats and dogs. Grandpa tried to drag me away, but my parents literally blocked the door. Because at that time, only my parents knew the horrifying truth about how Valerian treated me versus how Elysia treated me. Furious, Grandpa went back to France and completely cut off our branch of the family. Later on, when our branch suffered terribly under Elysia's abuse, we finally crawled our way to France. After my parents and I groveled and admitted we were idiots, Grandpa finally forgave us. Hearing how brutally Elysia had tortured me back home, Grandpa wanted to go full mafia boss and avenge me. But remembering the mess of our past lives, I figured getting tortured in this life was just me paying off my karmic debt to Elysia. We were officially even. After a lot of begging, I convinced Grandpa to drop his revenge plot. He agreed, but issued a strict warning. We were banned from ever having any contact with Elysia again. You can stay single forever, he said, but you are not getting hurt again. Knowing they messed up, my parents took Grandpa's scolding like champs every single time. I felt super guilty, but my parents told me they deserved it for not communicating properly in the first place and causing this massive, years-long drama. That night, caving to my aunt and Grandpa's demands, we stayed over at the main estate. In the evening, my mom knocked on my door. I saw the news from back home. What are you thinking? I have zero possibilities with Elysia, I said flatly. Right now, in her mind, I'm already a pile of ashes. Let's just keep the misunderstanding going. Saves us the headache of her finding out I'm alive and coming to harass me again. My mom nodded emphatically. Agreed, this is for the best. We chatted a bit more before she left, telling me to get some rest. For the next few days, our family stayed at the estate. We spent our days either playing chess with Grandpa or gossiping with my mom and aunt. Life was chill, luxurious, and completely drama-free. Until one day, a completely unexpected guest showed up at the estate's gates, the Elysia family butler. After getting hit with a combo breaker of emotional trauma, Elysia had completely collapsed and was bedridden. Grandpa Elysia had temporarily taken over the family business again, and his very first move? Sending his butler to France with expensive gifts to officially grovel and apologize to the Sterling family. After all, I practically died because of Elysia. They were 100% the villains in this story. Grandpa Elysia's message was basically, we don't expect you to forgive us, but please, for my sake, don't brutally retaliate against Elysia. She's already suffering her own karmic retribution. The Elysia family's visit was so sudden my brain blue-screened. My aunt, being the absolute boss she is, reacted instantly. She shoved our entire family up into the study on the second floor. No matter what you hear downstairs, do not come out! Once we were hidden, she marched downstairs. The Elysia butler stood awkwardly by the sofa, bowing non-stop, apologizing profusely to Grandpa Sterling, who was sitting there like a mob boss. The butler repeated Grandpa Elysia's pathetic message word for word. Grandpa Sterling didn't say a single word. He didn't even look at the guy. The silence was deafening. My aunt walked up, her face colder than a glacier. Butler Shen, since you know damn well the Sterling family doesn't want you here, why fly across the world just to embarrass yourself? Do you enjoy getting humiliated? The butler's face turned into a literal apology emoji. They were the bad guys. They literally couldn't argue back. He just kept bowing and apologizing. My aunt had zero patience for this. She waved her hand dismissively. If apologizing actually worked, would my nephew be alive right now? Go back. And while you're at it, pass a message to your Elysia family. From now on, our two families have zero ties. If you try to contact us again, you know exactly how the Sterling family deals with pests. The butler's face instantly went chalk white. The rest of his apologies choked in his throat. He couldn't squeak out a single syllable. My aunt didn't even spare him another glance. She just supported Grandpa as they walked upstairs, casually telling her own butler to take out the trash. This minor blip barely affected my fabulous life, but it sent a massive shockwave through the Alicia household back home. When the butler returned and recited my aunt's words verbatim, both Alicia and her grandpa looked like they'd seen a ghost. Alicia, especially, felt her stomach drop to the floor. If she hadn't been physically bedridden, she would have boarded a private jet and thrown herself on her knees outside the Sterling Manor. She knew the Sterling family hated her, but she never imagined the hate went that deep. They didn't even fly back to attend my funeral. She could kind of understand my parents not coming back. Seeing a gravestone would just rip their hearts out, and she didn't want them to suffer more. But Grandpa Sterling loved me more than life itself. Even if the old man couldn't handle a long-haul flight, he could have easily sent someone to pay respects, but they completely ghosted the funeral. This was incredibly suspicious, but Alicia's grief-addled brain couldn't quite connect the dots. Just then, Grandpa Alicia, who had been silent this whole time, finally spoke. He let out a heavy sigh and looked at her. When your health gets a little better, you should make a trip to France yourself. Even if they refuse to see you, you need to kneesel outside their gates and formally apologize. After all, this entire disaster is your fault. As Grandpa Alicia said this, his eyes were full of deep regret. If he had known that his granddaughter and I would end up like this, he would have canceled the wedding himself. Alicia nodded silently. After helping her grandpa back to his room, she walked back downstairs. Her assistant approached her hesitantly. Boss Alicia, Asher is demanding to see you. Hearing that name, Alicia's brain lagged for a second, before she remembered who the hell that was. Ever since she locked him up a month ago, she had completely deleted him from her memory files. Now that he was demanding a visit, she instinctively wanted to refuse. Never mention his name to me again. Whether he lives or dies is none of my business. The assistant looked incredibly conflicted. But Asher said what he wants to tell you is about Mr. Caspian. Hearing my name, Alicia's feet bolted to the floor. She stayed silent for a long, agonizing minute before finally speaking. Prepare the car. To the prison. In the bleak visitation room of the prison, Alicia stared through the thick bulletproof glass. Seeing Asher sitting there in his neon orange jumpsuit, looking completely malnourished and miserable, it took her a second to recognize him. In her memories, Asher was always dressed to the nines, putting on his best cute boy act to suck up to her. Now, he looked like roadkill. But Alicia had zero sympathy. She cut straight to the chase. What exactly do you want to tell me? After a month in the slammer, Asher had thoroughly learned his place. He didn't dare try any dramatic stunts. He got straight to the point. Caspian is still alive. Alicia literally felt the bones in her body shatter into a million pieces. Asher's lips were moving, but the words felt like literal needles stabbing directly into her temples. Her hand gripping the phone receiver turned bone white. I personally went to the airport and brought his urn back. I personally signed his death certificate. Alicia laughed. A crazy, unhinged laugh, though her voice was violently shaking. How dare you sit there and tell me he's still alive? Compared to Alicia's absolute breakdown, Asher was incredibly calm. I have a friend who works at the airport. When he came to visit me the other day, he told me something. On the exact day Caspian's flight supposedly crashed, a man with his exact name and his exact face bought 3 plane tickets to France. Last night, with the guard's permission, Asher had his friend print out the security footage photos and brought them in. He picked up the printout and pressed it against the glass for Alicia to see. On the paper, a face utterly identical to mine was staring right back at her. It felt like a flashbang went off in her retinas. Alicia would absolutely never mistake me. She had been married to me for 2 lifetimes. She knew every single angle of my face. It was him. It was definitely him. Alicia couldn't sit in that chair for another second. She violently shot up and sprinted out of the prison. She scrambled into her car, speeding toward the airport while frantically screaming at her assistant on the phone. Book me a ticket to France! Right now! The earliest flight. She was going to find me. She was going to grab me by the shoulders and demand to know why I faked my death, why I didn't come back to find her. She was going to pour out all the longing, the love, and the memories she had been drowning in for the past month. She was going to win me back. We were going to remarry. We were going to start a perfect new life. The plane sliced through the clouds and finally touched down at an airport in France. It was currently drizzling lightly in Paris. My face was slightly pale, both hands shoved deep into my pockets. I was literally just out hanging with my friends. I never expected this kind of horrific jump scare, because I heard that voice, that awfully familiar voice that haunted my suicide in the past life, my car crash in this life, and countless other times I was in danger. Caspian! The screeching brakes sliced through the rainy street. I absolutely refused to listen to Alicia's voice right now. Our story had already rolled the end credits. It was over. And honestly, I really didn't want to look at her face. I had no idea what kind of dark magic she used to figure out I was still breathing, but her showing up here was a massive code red. Thinking fast, I immediately speed-dialed my aunt back at the estate. Auntie, Alicia tracked me down. She knows I'm alive. That one frantic sentence made my aunt gasp sharply over the phone. A second later, she went full commander mode. Don't panic. With me around, I will absolutely never let her get her hands on you. Got it, I said. Then I'm gonna crash somewhere else for a few days. Don't tell my parents or grandpa so they don't worry. Now that my cover was blown, I had to act fast. Meanwhile, Alicia was currently power walking through the streets of Paris with an umbrella. She originally wanted to sprint directly to my location, but right after landing, her grandpa called her. He thought she was going there specifically to apologize to the Sterling family, so he reminded her to buy some insanely expensive apology gifts. Alicia realized he had a point. Considering she had practically tortured me for months, showing up empty-handed to see me really wasn't a good look. So, she rerouted, hopped out of the car, and hit the luxury shopping district in Paris to buy me presents. Alicia was walking out of a high-end boutique carrying several bags plastered with designer logos. Suddenly, a massive gust of wind hit her umbrella so hard the metal ribs screamed in protest. And then she saw it. 10 meters away, standing under a sycamore tree, a figure was closing an umbrella. His collarbone-length hair was damp from the rain, catching the light perfectly. The hem of his gray trench coat swept just above the wet cobblestones. It was the exact same trench coat I was wearing the last time she saw me. Alicia's designer shopping bags literally slipped out of her hands. Bottles of ridiculously expensive perfume smashed onto the ground, the intense scent exploding into the air. The smell instantly yanked her back into her most agonizing memories. She felt like she was back in the airport 3 months ago. The suffocating grief, the screams, the crying, and the pathetic animalistic wails she made while clutching my urn. And now that silhouette turning around, the exact angle of the curve, even the specific shape of the wrist bone exposed in the rain was undeniably, perfectly him. Alicia shoved past a pedestrian holding a hot coffee. The blue glow from the digital billboards practically exploded in her pupils. She scrambled onto the escalator heading down to the subway station, pushing past a sea of blurry faces coming up. She whipped her head left and right in a total panic, the hope in her eyes rapidly dimming into terror. Just as she was about to give up, a flash of white light illuminated the end of the escalator. A pale, familiar hand was resting lightly on the handle of a black umbrella. That single hand instantly lit up the absolute darkness in Alicia's eyes. "Move! Get out of the way!" She shoved past a worker carrying boxes. She elbowed past a mother holding a child. She fought her way through the chaotic crowd like an absolute madwoman. Finally, she got a clear look at my face. The station lights washed over my slightly damp hair. My eyes were still as bright as literal stars. A train roared into the station. The wind whipped up the hem of my coat. As the automated voice announced the doors opening, I calmly lifted my foot and stepped onto the train. Alicia lunged forward, desperately trying to launch herself through the doors, but the warning buzzers screamed. Boop, boop, boop. The metal doors slid shut, locking tightly right in her tragic face. The train roared away, leaving Alicia standing on the platform. It took away her train, and it took away her sanity. She stood there like a petrified statue, absolutely frozen in place for what felt like hours. But inside, her chest felt like an utterly dead, barren wasteland that suddenly erupted with a million vibrantly colored flowers. She could feel it. Her heart, which had been practically dead for months, was finally beating wildly, violently alive again. Even though she didn't catch me, she was trembling with pure ecstasy. If she had still harbored 1% doubt about Asher's story before flying out, now she was 1000% convinced. Caspian is alive. Alicia sprinted out of the subway station and dove into a cab parked on the street. "To the Sterling estate! Now!" After hanging up with my aunt, I walked out of the subway station and hailed a completely different cab. "Hello, to the airport. I need a ticket to America." Very quickly, I was chilling in a VIP departure lounge with my ticket in hand. Meanwhile, Alicia jumped out of her cab and practically sprinted to the Sterling gates. The Sterling family's reaction to her visit was exactly the same as their reaction to the butler. "Alicia." My aunt took a slow, elegant sip of her tea, her tone dripping with sarcasm. "If you want to lie, at least try to make it sound believable. You claim Caspian is still alive. You claim you literally just saw him in a Paris subway station. Where's the proof?" Alicia's face twitched. She realized she had been so manic she totally forgot to snap a picture. Thank God for Asher's printouts. "Whether you believe me or not, Caspian is alive. This is the absolute truth." She slammed the airport photos onto the table in front of my aunt. In the photo, my parents and I were sitting in a corner of the airport terminal. The morning sun was hitting my face, making me look annoyingly handsome. My parents were beside me, smiling happily, but my aunt didn't even blink. "Miss Alicia, I have no idea why you are so obsessed with pushing this delusion that Caspian is alive. But this person? This isn't Caspian. And besides, didn't you hate him?" Alicia choked on her own words. What was she supposed to say? Say that we both reincarnated? People would literally lock her in a psych ward. After a desperate mental struggle, she finally spoke. "Caspian and I, we had some misunderstandings. But please, you have to believe me, I love him." My aunt let out a bark of cold, mocking laughter. "If you really loved him, why did you do all those horrific things to him? Touch your own conscience and ask yourself, is that what love looks like?" "No, it wasn't." Alicia panicked. "I originally thought he didn't love me. That's why I treated him like that. Later, when I found out he loved me, I tried to make it up to him, but he just..." "Alicia." My aunt cut her off coldly. "If Caspian didn't love you, he never would have married you. When you started keeping a sugar baby, we literally told him to divorce you and come back to France. He refused. He said he wanted to give you a few more chances. Unfortunately, you blew every single one of them. Now that the boy is dead, stop obsessively haunting his memory. My aunt finished her absolute verbal smackdown, turned her back, and walked back into the manor, slamming the doors shut. Wait! Elysia instinctively lunged forward, but the massive iron gates blocked her. She stared at my aunt's retreating back, her hands slowly clenching into fists. No, she didn't see wrong. That was absolutely me. She didn't know why I was refusing to see her. She didn't know why I made my family lie for me, but she could wait. Just like back in high school, when she sat by the basketball court, waiting for a whole month until I was finally dragged over by my friends. For the next few days, Elysia camped outside the Sterling estate, from sunrise to sunset, through bright sunny days and freezing rainy nights. One day, a very familiar silhouette finally stepped out the gates. Caspian! Elysia's eyes practically exploded with light. She threw her car door open, sprinted over, grabbed my hand and crushed me into a desperate hug. Caspian, I finally found you! Do you have any idea how much I missed you? I really thought you were dead. But the person in her arms forcefully shoved her away with a look of utter disgust. Are you insane? Why are you grabbing people and screaming at them? The Sterling family butler immediately rushed out, bowing respectfully. Eldest young master, welcome back. The man glared at the butler. What exactly are you paying security for? Why is this crazy woman hanging around here? She scared the hell out of me. Do your jobs! The butler's face changed. He quickly stepped in front of the man, acting like a human shield, and glared sternly at Elysia. Miss Elysia, please leave immediately. Otherwise, I'm calling the police. But Elysia looked like her soul had left her body. She completely ignored the butler's warning. Her entire focus was dead set on trying to grab the man's hand again. Caspian, it's me, don't you remember me? The butler looked at Elysia's unhinged behavior and let out a very dramatic, very deep sigh. Miss Elysia, you have the wrong person. This is not Caspian. This is the First Lady's son, Julian. Those words hit Elysia like a literal thunderbolt. Her brain buzzed wildly. What did you say? The butler looked at her confused, pathetic face with maximum pity. Young Master Julian and Caspian are cousins. They look so incredibly alike that outsiders constantly mistake them for twins. As for what you claimed before, seeing someone taking Caspian's parents out of the airport in France, that was also young Master Julian. Back when you forced Caspian out of the country, he was worried no one would take care of his parents. So he begged young Master Julian, who happened to be back in the country, to go pick them up. Miss Elysia, even if you are completely shattered by losing Caspian, please stop harassing random people. No, that's not true. Elysia completely refused to accept reality. He is Caspian. He has a scar on his wrist from when he saved me. She violently shoved the butler aside and lunged for the man's arm, desperately trying to yank up his sleeve to prove her point. Slap! What met Elysia's hand was an incredibly crisp, iconic slap across the face. Julian glared at her, pointing a finger in her face, absolutely livid. Are you psycho? If you need glasses, go to an eye doctor. Don't come here and sexually harass me. Butler, are you just gonna stand there? Throw her out. Before the words even settled, a swarm of bodyguards rushed out and forcibly dragged Elysia away. Elysia thrashed wildly, her eyes burning with pure, unadulterated denial. Caspian! Caspian! Julian stood there, watching her with absolute, icy disdain. As she was dragged further and further down the street, he casually pulled out his phone and gave me a call. Hearing that Elysia got physically dragged away, I thanked my cousin profusely over the phone. Thanks for dealing with that mess today, Julian. Honestly, I originally thought my aunt's verbal beatdown would make Elysia believe I was truly dead and give up. I never expected her to be this insanely stubborn, literally camping outside the estate for days refusing to leave. Out of options, I had to ask my lookalike cousin to step in and put on an Oscar-winning performance. I needed her to completely, fundamentally believe that the person she saw was Julian, not me. And judging by the results, the performance was a massive success. For days after that, I didn't hear a single peep about Elysia bothering my family again. Meanwhile, in a luxury rental villa in Paris, Elysia stared at the background check documents in front of her, her face draining of all blood. How is this possible? How could she have mistaken him? Even if it was just a quick glance, Elysia believed in her bones that it was me, nobody else. But why did the universe insist it was a different man? Did I really die in that plane crash? Is everything she's experiencing right now just her own psychotic hallucination? The light in Elysia's eyes slowly, agonizingly died out. Just then, her rented butler knocked on the study door. Boss Elysia, someone is here to see you. Elysia frowned. She literally had zero friends in France. Who the hell was looking for her? When she dragged herself down the stairs and saw the incredibly familiar figure sitting on her sofa, she thought she was having another psychotic break. Hearing her footsteps, the man on the sofa stood up and looked at her. In that exact second, Elysia let out a self-deprecating laugh in her head. Yep, definitely a hallucination. Because the person standing there was Julian, the man she had supposedly mistaken me for. Julian saw her coming down and stood up politely. Miss Elysia, regarding what happened the other day, I hadn't fully grasped the situation, so I came to formally apologize. Elysia shook her head numbly. No, my behavior was completely unhinged. I should be the one apologizing. After exchanging fake corporate pleasantries, Elysia finally asked why the hell he was in her house. Julian's face went dead serious. It's like this. Before my cousin passed away, he sent me a voice recording as his last words. A part of it is directed, specifically at you. Julian paused, observing Alicia's face, testing the waters. Would you like to listen to it now? Alicia remained frozen in place, nodding her head as stiffly as a robot. Very quickly, the man opened the audio file on his phone. After a brief burst of static, that deeply familiar, long-lost voice started playing from the speaker. Alicia, by the time you hear this, I assume I've already left this world. I know you were reborn, but for some reason you refused to acknowledge me. You even went out of your way to hurt me over and over again. It honestly made me doubt if the you who loved me in our past life was even real. But honestly, none of that matters to me anymore. After all, I'm about to die. In our last life, I was the one who wronged you. I was a brat, I didn't love you, and I caused you unimaginable pain. So ending up the way I did, I totally deserved it. This time around, I really wanted to make it up to you. I really wanted to love you properly. But clearly you didn't want my compensation. And honestly, I'm not even mad about all the torture you put me through. Let's just consider it my karmic debt paid in full. My voice in the recording was slow, calm, and completely devoid of emotion. We are completely even now. From now on, you need to live a good life. Stop staying stuck in the past because of me. If there is a next life, let's just never meet again. We really aren't right for each other. The recording ended. A long, suffocating silence filled the room. It felt like an entire agonizing century passed before Alicia finally forced her mouth open. Could you please send a copy of this recording to me? Julian blinked, then nodded. Of course. Before Julian left, Alicia used his phone to record a response to me. A voicemail dedicated to a dead man in heaven. After Julian left, Alicia curled up into a fetal position on the floor. She kept rewinding and replaying that short recording over and over again. You need to live a good life. Stop staying stuck in the past. We aren't right for each other. Not right for each other? We clearly loved each other so insanely much, but we brutally missed our timing, over and over again. Maybe we really just weren't meant to be. Thinking of this, a piercing pain shot through Alicia's right hand. She looked down and saw her fingernails had dug so deeply into her palm that dark red drops of blood were sliding down her lifelines. They splattered onto the floor tiles, blooming like dark, tragic roses. The thunderstorm outside suddenly erupted, deafeningly loud. The freezing dampness crept in through the cracks in the window, feeling like a giant hand reaching out from hell. It wrapped around her tightly, slowly crushing her into pieces. In every single shattered fragment, there was a different version of me. The high school me playing basketball. The college graduate me, wearing a suit, walking toward her. The reborn me, crying and throwing myself into her arms. And finally, the dead-eyed, empty me, turning my back to her and walking into the airport. Caspian, I can't do it, she whispered into the empty air. Every time she closed her eyes, my face was right there. How was she supposed to keep living in a world where I didn't exist? She slowly put the phone down and buried her face in her arms. The exact second a terrifying crack of lightning split the night skies, Alicia finally heard it. A pathetic, agonizing wail tore out of her throat. She sounded exactly like a trapped beast being choked to death by a steel chain. The rain hammered down for the entire night. When the morning sun finally stabbed through the clouds, the rain stopped. The dead leaves on the sycamore trees dripped with water. One single drop fell perfectly into her dried-out, tearless eye socket. When Alicia's plane sliced through the clouds heading back home, I finally listened to her voicemail through a text Julian sent me. Caspian, I don't know if you can hear this in heaven right now, but I still have to say I'm sorry. I was reborn too, and I absolutely, undeniably still love you. I was just bitter. I loved you for so long, why couldn't you ever just turn around and look at me? At first, following my friend's stupid advice, I tried to ice you out. I wanted to force you to realize how much you needed me. I wanted you to bow your head first. But then, you reincarnated too, and you swore you wanted to love me. So I thought, fine, let me see exactly how deep this love goes. So I couldn't stop myself from hurting you, over and over again. Asher wasn't my lover. He was literally just a paid actor. I never imagined he would do the horrific things he did to you, so I threw him in prison. Without my permission, he will rot in that cell for the rest of his miserable life. In your message, you told me to forget you and live a good life. But I can't forget you. I physically cannot. I almost considered dying with you again, but I was terrified you'd reject me in the afterlife. So I'm going to stay alive. I'm going to atone for my sins. I will take perfect care of your parents, your friends. I'll maintain that patch of roses you loved in the garden. I'll take care of Grandpa. When the day comes that I've settled all my debts, I'll come find you. I hope when that time comes, you'll give me a chance to make it up to you. Caspian, I love you so much, and I am so sorry. If there is a next life, please, just don't ever run into me again. Click with a soft noise. I directly locked my phone screen. My chest was a chaotic hurricane of insanely complicated emotions. My nose burned with a sharp, acidic sting. I raised my hand and wiped away the single tear that slipped from the corner of my eye. I told myself over and over again, this is for the best, this is for the best. Our meeting in the first place was a cosmic error. Now, living completely separate, peaceful lives, that is the absolute best ending for us. Alicia